Imagine buying two of the most boy-centric properties, Marvel Comics and Star Wars, to tap into that young boy market, and screwing up both franchises so badly that now you can't get teen boys to watch Marvel movies or Star Wars.
How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up?
I've seen some really dumb studio decisions in my day, but Disney managing to squander the built-in audience for two franchises they bought to specifically appeal to that audience absolutely takes the cake. It is by far the dumbest decision I've ever seen a studio make. Variety posted an article about Disney's boy troubles. Basically, Disney can't get teenage boys to watch Marvel or Star Wars anymore. You know, the target audience for both franchises. From the article, quote, "Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men is defined here by sources as ages 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. This is the same Disney whose multi-billion-dollar content engines, Marvel and Lucasfilm, have sated men of all ages over almost 2 decades since the company acquired them. The sources say Disney has been seeking new IP and pitches such as splashy global adventures and treasure hunts, as well as seasonal fare for films like The Halloween Corridor. The calls come as the Star Wars machine struggles to produce any film project, and the superhero genre sheds audiences by the minute. They can't get boys to watch the thing that's tailor-made for them. That's insane. It's fucking insane. But let's just take it one piece at a time so we can see how they got here. Part of the reason Disney bought Marvel Comics and later Lucasfilm was to appeal to young men and boys, a market Disney had failed to win over for years. Prior to purchasing Marvel, Disney was largely seen as a girl brand, with the bulk of its TV programming, movies, and merchandising targeting young girls, mostly between the ages of 8 to 13. But that hadn't always been the case. For decades, Disney was just a family brand. Then in the 80s leading into the 90s Renaissance, Disney began to focus on particular markets. Their movies and live-action TV shows were still mostly family-oriented, while their merchandising, clothes, backpacks, watches, accessories, and so on, began to lean more towards a young girl audience. However, their animated TV programming leaned more towards a young boy audience, with shows like The Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, Goof Troop, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Gargoyles, and The Mighty Ducks. There were shows like The Little Mermaid that specifically targeted girls, but for the most part, the target audience was young boys. However, in the early 2000s, leading into the 2010s, that changed. Shows like Lizzie McGuire, Kim Possible, That's So Raven, and Hannah Montana became massive hits, and that shifted the TV programming audience. Most of the shows, even the ones with male leads, were geared towards tween girls. Disney struggled to win back the boys they lost, with shows like American Dragon failing to draw in a young male audience. Instead, those boys started watching anime and turned to video games. This is part of the reason Disney bought Marvel Comics. Superhero comics, movies, and shows tend to appeal to young boys, and with the rising success of superhero movies in the early 2000s, this was a no-brainer. The market was basically built in, so Disney's only real problem was that Marvel already sold the rights to their most popular characters, like Spider-Man and the X-Men, so Disney would have to make do with the less popular Avengers. And boy, did that. In fact, they did so well that they eventually purchased Lucasfilm from George Lucas, giving them yet another male-centric franchise in Star Wars. And that's where things started to fall apart. The MCU films did well, but when the Avengers came out and made $1.5 billion, there was clamoring about the lack of female representation in the MCU. Basically, everyone on the team except for Black Widow was male, and everyone had a movie or two of their own, except for Black Widow and Hawkeye. But we'll ignore that, just like those people did. Following the first Avengers film, there was a greater push to make the MCU shows and movies target a female audience. This led to shows like Jessica Jones, Agent Carter, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, and Agatha All Along, and movies like Captain Marvel, Madam Web, and The Marvels, and also resulted in one of the cringiest scenes in the MCU when all the female characters assembled. This isn't to say that making MCU content for women and girls is a bad thing. The point is that Disney didn't have trouble winning over a female audience in general. Their problem was that nothing they made appealed to a male audience, so they bought Marvel Comics in part to win over the male audience they didn't have. But due to the popularity of the MCU, there was a politically motivated push to change the target audience solely due to negative attitudes about anything being male-centric or male-dominated. That negative anti-male attitude permeated nearly every Marvel Studios property post-Endgame, regardless of whether Marvel Studios or Disney intended it to. When it comes to Star Wars, things started off much worse because right out the gate, Disney decided to shift away from the franchise's existing male-centric audience to focus on making Star Wars more female-friendly, leaning into concepts like claiming the Force is female. This wasn't a one-off with a female lead for the sequels or the Rogue One prequel. This was a general shift across the board from the films to the shows down to the comics and novels. There was a general attitude from the start that it's somehow bad that Star Wars appeals primarily to boys, and it eventually led to shows like The Acolyte and the upcoming Rey Palpatine movie, where the intent is to challenge the male audience. Add in the Disneyfication of Star Wars, the general watering down of everything that made Star Wars interesting, and unsurprisingly, this resulted in Disney losing a fair amount of Star Wars core audience, teenage boys. You know, the people who usually like Star Wars. In short, Disney told teen boys to piss off, so piss off they did, right to anime and video games, two mediums that are happy to appeal to a young male audience. Now Disney is in a quandary because it turns out that women and girls aren't that into Star Wars or the MCU, so making them the target audience wasn't the wisest decision, let alone adapting the least popular Marvel comic stories in recent memory or flooding the market with so many movies and shows. So now Disney wants to win back the people they worked so hard to get rid of, and their plan is to do this by creating new IPs, intellectual properties for those who don't know. To recap, they spent $4 billion to buy Lucasfilm just to get Star Wars, and now they're like, fuck it, we don't want to use it anymore.
Well, it's fucking insane. Right, that's enough of it.
No,
I don't know what we're doing.
fuck off.
I don't know who's going to learn anything from this.
Wait. Okay.
You did ruin Star Wars so much you can't get 13-year-old boys to watch it? You can't get teenage boys to watch superhero movies. Seriously.
How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up?
The idea that Disney mismanaged the MCU and Star Wars so badly that they ran off the franchise's target audience is just amazing. Now they want to create new IPs. That's fine. People are tired of the sequels and reboots. But Disney really doesn't need to make something entirely new. They own Marvel Comics, which means they also own Malibu Comics and CrossGen. Malibu had its own line of superheroes and a number of other imprints they bought prior to getting bought out by Marvel Comics. And CrossGen covered many different genres. All of that is available to Disney. When it comes to Star Wars, there are plenty of stories to tell, especially if they set things in the Old Republic. They could also tap into the anime zeitgeist by expanding their Star Wars Visions concept into a full TV series or film, letting top Japanese anime directors have a go in the world of Star Wars. Imagine a Star Wars version of Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, or Solo Leveling. That would give Disney plenty of original shows and films that aren't sequels or reboots. But let's say Disney decides to make something entirely new, unrelated to anything they've done before. What will it be about? Does anyone at Disney know what teen boys like? Have they even bothered to ask? That's a rhetorical question. I know the answer is no, because otherwise Disney wouldn't be in this situation. If any of the people running Disney really wanted to win over the 13 to 28-year-old male demo, they'd just find out what those boys and men watch and play. Anime and video games are massively popular, so it's not like it's hard to find out which ones appeal to young boys, especially since there are entire genres built around doing that. Solo Leveling is popping off, and Disney is over here like, who knows what the boys like? None can tell. Boys exist. You can talk to them. Just ask. Ask them what shows they watch, what games they play, and what they like about them, and then make something like that, preferably with someone who doesn't hate boys. Somehow, Disney was able to do this 30 years ago with their animated shows. Somehow, game devs have done it for over 40 years. Somehow the Japanese have done it for damn near 100 years in print, TV, film, and video games. Kinda sounds like it's not that hard to do if your goal is to actually appeal to that young male audience. But if your goal is to lecture them about their male privilege, or put them down for being male, or to subvert expectations of the things they like, then yeah, they probably won't watch your shit. So the real question is whether Disney really wants to win over that 13 to 28-year-old male demographic. Do they really want to make movies and shows that appeal specifically to that group? Because everything Disney's done in the last few years makes it seem like they're embarrassed and ashamed if their movies and shows appeal to teen boys. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.